Oh, the joys of living with cats. You know, that is really an annoying sound. Super loud. So a couple of days ago, I was rearranging my shelf and I was looking at my old camera. In fact, the camera that started everything for me when it came down to photography, wanting to learn more about filmmaking, making videos for YouTube, you know, learning how to operate a camera and just more about cameras in general. And the list just goes on and on and on. And lately I've been actually trying to, you know, create more within a limited amount of space. For example, just around here in this room. Lately I've been kind of feeling a little bored with photography because, you know, when you do the same thing over and over and over, you know, there's a mountain, we're going down to the city, we're gonna take some, you know, street shots. Things become very repetitive and very monotonous. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to limit myself within a certain space for creativity and just be as creative as I possibly can and think about certain things that I could do just around a room. And when I was looking at my camera, I was thinking, you know what? I want to post a photo up on Instagram and ask everybody what is the camera that they started out with? What is the camera that got them into doing this craft? And since lately I decided that I'm going to try to step outside of my comfort zone from doing the norm, which is, you know, going hiking, going on road trips, traveling, shooting mountains, so on and so forth, I decided, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity right here. I'm going to use this as the spark that starts the fire that has me think outside of the box and try to do something outside of my norm and just be creative. And not only has it started me thinking outside of the box with what I can do even just within this room, it got me into doing some self-portraits as well. And this inspired me on so many levels because this is the camera that started it all for me. And I'm going back to that to rely on a subject that I could talk about, you know, with other people, something that people can relate to. And it also inspired me to add more pieces of myself into my work, more than just hiking and traveling and backpacking and camping. But anyways, the camera that started it all is, well, little Canon M50. This thing is, it's a great little camera and I will never part ways with this thing. I mean, there's a Canon M50 Mark II out right now, which is pretty awesome, but 3 days ago marks my 3 years of me taking on the journey as a photographer, filmmaker, content creator. And what's even crazier is that the day that I decided to, you know, make this post to, you know, connect with other photographers and, you know, talk about the camera that started it all for me, for them, and so on and so forth, whether it be for photography, filmmaking, content creation, image cultivation operations specialist. That sounds badass, doesn't it? There's just something about the term camera operator that makes me feel, it makes me feel more badass because it sounds better than photographer or content creator. You know, because when you think of those two terms, photographer, it's just somebody that just, hello, how are you? It's great to see every single one of you. How is your day going? But this is the camera that started it all for me. Keep in mind this video is not sponsored by Canon, but I wanted to make a video not so much about this camera, but the backstory behind the camera. What started it all? Like, why did I even choose this thing? What got me into photography? What got me into making videos? I'm just gonna put this over here on the shelf, so that way it doesn't fall out of my hands or fall off the desk and smash into a million pieces on the floor. Not really. Now, prior to getting this camera, I was never, ever into photography, let alone thinking about becoming a photographer. I mean, I like taking photos with my phone, so let's say I went for a hike and there was something cool along the way on the trail, or I got to a big vista or an overlook, or I got to the summit of the mountain, just pull out my phone, take a few, didn't think much of it, put it back in the pants pocket, and head down trail. Or if I got something new, like a new backpack, a new knife, a new guitar, you know, I really didn't think about doing product shots, or, you know, I never really thought about going to a new city or new state on where I'm gonna shoot, what time of the day I'm gonna shoot, waking up early just to get to a certain spot to get photos. I was never thinking about getting into exposure, like manual mode with shutter speed, aperture, ISO, thinking about, you know, focal lengths and how you can compose a photo and, you know, set up framing, and the list goes on and on and on. So up to the point of getting this little camera, I was never, ever interested in photography, and I never thought about getting interested in it. It's just something that wasn't a calling to me, and I actually thought it was kind of boring. I mean, if we're being honest here. I actually have always been a musician growing up, you know, ever since I was a little kid. Started out on playing drums, which that skill is long gone. and I don't think it's ever coming back. But then I found guitar, and I got really deep into guitar, and I played punk and metal and, you know, old country music and bluegrass, some folk, some indie stuff, and eventually I found banjo, and I started playing banjo, and then a little bit of old-time fiddle or violin, some bass, some upright bass, you know, cello is really cool too, and then I started dabbling into some mandolin, started singing, screaming in some punk and metal bands that never have ever went anywhere. It's been such a huge part of my life that I even have given up a really, really, really good job just to travel, live in a van, and play music. It's always been such a huge part of me. And it never was just music that was a part of me. You know, I got really big into skateboarding and traveling and hiking, and then hiking became a huge part to where, like, I wanted to do bigger mountains when, you know, once I reached up to the Catskills, and then I just wanted to just try to find different trails and harder trails and higher summits, and that became a huge part of my life. I mean, I've always hiked ever since I was a little kid, but I never have ever thought that I would ever get into mountaineering or climbing, which that is a whole other topic to get into. I've been into all these different things growing up on so many different levels and spectrums, and I've always been a very creative person, somebody who's very DIY, somebody who loves to create something out of absolutely nothing. So one night I was hanging out with an old buddy of mine, and we had a few drinks, and my buddy was really huge into YouTubers, vloggers, people who would document their days and make things out of nothing, anything from going to a store to, you know, going out and pranking people, or, you know, they'd be flying through the desert in a trophy truck or a side-by-side or a Jeep, or they'd be jumping out of airplanes or going off a big mega ramp on a skateboard. Like, so many people were doing all these creative things and just documenting them and using their lives as the narrative. They were making things out of nothing, and it was very raw, very, you know, very personal, and it was just like, this is what's going on, take it for face value, and this is my story. So, and being that they were using their lives as the narrative, everything from something big to something very, very minuscule, as if, you know, going to the store or, you know, just talking about something, that was very, very raw, very real to me, and it spoke to me in so many different ways that I was like, I need to do this, because these people are making things out of nothing. They're just using their lives as a narrative, as a story, and it just inspired me on so many different levels. Now, prior to this night, every time that we would hang out, and we would hang out a lot, every time that we would get together, he'd be watching these YouTubers. So I'd be watching them with him, and as we would watch them, every time we would hang out, I just wanted to do it more and more and more. And when we were hanging out that night, I was like, dude, I need to do this because this looks so much fun. And he said, awesome, but how are you gonna do it? You don't have a camera. You don't really have anything that you can record on. And I told him, I was like, dude, we have phones. I could just use my phone. I'll vlog on my phone and just call it a day. I'll put stuff on the computer. I'll edit it. And, you know, I had no idea on how to edit anything, but I was gonna figure it out anyways. And needless to say, I didn't use my phone. The next day I went up to Best Buy and I went looking at cameras. And I was looking for something compact, you know, something that I could take with me anywhere, that's not too expensive and has decent quality video. And I'm standing in the camera aisle and I'm looking back and forth because there's all these different cameras. There's Canon, and then there's Nikon, and then there's Fuji, and then there was Sony, and then there was, you know, point shoots and DSLRs and mirrorless. And I knew nothing about camera brands or the difference between a point and shoot and a DSLR and a mirrorless, and, you know, I knew nothing. So I was clueless and I had no idea what I was looking for. But I had a couple friends that were into photography and they all shot Canon. And they all had all these great things to say about Canon, so, you know, that's what I decided to look at. And I always heard great things about the PowerShot G7X and the Mark II, and I was looking at that little point and shoot, but then, you know, I wanted something that I can maybe change out lenses with because I thought that that was cool, and, you know, variety is a great thing. At this point, I decided to keep my options open. I said to myself, you know, let's just keep browsing. Let's see what else they have. You know, let's check out the other options. And I'm walking down the aisle and I seen some DSLRs and seen Rebel T5 eyes, 6 eyes, and T7 eyes. And, you know, I picked up a T7i because I figured, you know, the higher the number, it's probably the newest one. So picked that up and I'm like, this thing's not exactly the amount of compactness, if you will, that I was looking for. And it's kind of on the heavy side a little bit, so put that back to, you know, see if maybe I can come back to it. And walked down the aisle a little bit more and I found the M50. Picked it up and I'm like, wow, this thing is tiny. Started playing around with it a little bit and I found out you can swap out lenses. I was like, what? You can swap out lenses on this thing? This thing is like, this thing's smaller than my cell phone. I figured, you know what, let's play around with it a little bit more. Let's see what it can do. And you know what, when I touched the LCD screen, I was like, what? This thing has a touch screen. Cameras have touch screens. I had no idea that cameras can have a touch screen. So, you know, I'm playing around with the LCD screen and I'm like, what? This thing is so cool. So then I brought the camera up to my eye, like looking down the viewfinder, because you know that's what everyone does with a camera. And I'm looking in the viewfinder and it switched from the LCD screen to the viewfinder. And I'm like, what is this? This is like some futuristic stuff. Like, I'm totally sold on this thing. So I'm super pumped at this point about everything that's going on with this camera. And I went and I looked at the price and it said like 600 bucks. I'm like, 600 bucks? Like that's kind of high. I mean, at least at that point in time, I thought that $600 was a lot of money for a camera, and I had no idea that camera bodies can go anywhere between, you know, 500 to 5,000, 10,000, you know. Then if you're like looking at like Reds and stuff, you know, like $20,000, $30,000. So I said to myself, I'm like, how am I gonna come up with like 600 bucks? Like, I really want this thing. So then I thought to myself, you know, let's see exactly how good this thing is. Let's look at the specs on the little chart that's, you know, like in front of the camera, and we'll see if it's worth 600 bucks. So I'm looking at the specs and it said 4K. I'm like, that's it. Sold. I'm done. This is the one that I want. I need to get this. Little did I know that when it shot in 4K, it had a 2.5 crop factor, but I knew nothing about crop factors or sensors or frame rates or anything that had to do with technical stuff when it came down to cameras at this point. But you know, I seen that it said 4K and I was like, yep, I'm sold. So being that I made my final decision that this is officially the camera that I wanted to get, I had to think to myself, how am I gonna come up with $600 extra? Because I have no extra cash laying around. Times were tough and you know, we all run into them. But I went home and I tried to figure out the bills so then that way I can squeeze out some extra cash so I can save up for this camera. But sadly, it turned out that I wasn't able to work around the bills, and it really bummed me out because I really wanted to get this camera. But then I remembered, wait, we don't go target shooting anymore, because we used to, you know, take our firearms up in the woods and we'd, you know, go shoot targets all day. And I was like, wait, I got some firearms that I could just take down to the local gun shop and see how much they'd give me. Maybe I'd have enough. Next day I got the firearms that I wanted to sell. I took them to the local gun shop and I asked them, how much can I get for this? And you know, needless to say, they said this is how much you can get, which was more than enough than what I needed. And after that I went straight to Best Buy, picked up the M50, and at this point I was so excited. I was more excited than a kid at Christmas times 1,000. So I came home, put the battery on the battery charger, waited for it to fully charge, put the battery back in the camera, and I was like, now what? Didn't really think on what I wanted to make or what I wanted to vlog about or how I was gonna do it, or you know, what other features that the camera had to offer. I just wanted to make videos. So now I have the camera, and well, at this point I had no game plan. I had no idea what to make videos about. I had no idea on how to vlog, what to vlog. You know, I know that people would use their lives as narratives, but I thought my life was boring, so I was like, no one really wants to, like, you know, watch me clean a house or, you know, do some type of mundane tasks. So then I went on this massive search between Google and YouTube and, you know, combing through countless articles and watching countless videos on what to vlog about, how to vlog, you know, coming up with ideas for videos and just trying to find that inspiration on what I can do. And I came across a video of somebody talking about a guy named Peter McKinnon and how everybody wants to be like him on YouTube. And at this point, I had no idea who Peter was, so naturally I went and looked him up, and when I seen his stuff, I was like, yo, like, this guy is awesome. Like, I can learn so much stuff from him. Like, there's photography and video stuff, and then there's, you know, vlogs, and let's go watch this guy. And then when I watched, you know, his vlogs, I was like, yo, this guy's got like some crazy stuff going on, and it sparked so much inspiration for me to go and make videos. And I watched his one video on how to shoot in manual mode, because I was thinking, I'm like, man, I have a camera now. I can, you know, go take photos. Let's see what the difference is between this camera and my phone camera. And I watched his how to shoot in manual mode, or Camera Basics 101. And I went out and I took my first photo of some leaves that were in my backyard. And I was like, yo, this is awesome. I can totally do this. Like, I am making art and, cultivating images by pressing a button. And that's where it started. And all I wanted to do was go out every day and just go take pictures. I just wanted to go out and take pictures of anything and everything, from snowflakes to falling leaves to, cars and then buildings and, trees. I just wanted to take photos of everything. I didn't care how the photos were going to turn out. I just wanted to go out and take photos. So as time went on, I fell more and more in love with taking photos, and I just fell in love with the entire process of learning how to compose a photo, how to frame a photo, how to use manual mode, because I figured if I'm going to use a camera to take photos, I should learn how to do it the correct way with, having the right settings and having full control of my camera in order to achieve the image that I want, and this is the end result. And as I grew proficient with my camera, I figured that now, since I, love taking photos, I could also take photos out on the trail and share, the places that I've been and the entire process as, me and whoever else was with me would make our way up the mountain and, share the mountains that I've been to and share the mountains that I've summited, and, not only just the trail and the mountains, but also the places that I've been to, and just share how I see the world through my lens. It's almost as if I restarted my entire journey with music, and I fell in love with that all over again, but on a totally different spectrum. Then as time grew on, I eventually made an Instagram just for my photography, so then that way I had a place to post my work that wasn't Facebook, for example, because I wasn't looking to post on Facebook. I wanted to post in a place where, there are other photographers that can see my work, where other people that are interested in those said things that I was posting, so then that way I can, put hashtags and, really organize where I wanted my work to be put out to, instead of just thrown on Facebook to where friends, family, and friends of friends were able to see. And then that became a love in itself, because how I would post my photos is I would post them to a certain theme, and I would roll with a certain theme for a certain amount of time, along with certain colors within a color palette, and I would edit my photos to where, the colder months would be cold tones, and then the warm months would be warm tones, and the colors would fluctuate upon my grid, and you can see it fade from, from cold tones to warmer tones to muted tones to more vibrant tones. And it just helped me so much as a photographer to understand what to do with certain things, how to make photos look a certain way. And then of course, it was fun. It was just fun to do, because I was always looking for something new to shoot in certain ways for certain colors and certain themes. And this went on for about a year and a half. I was out trying to shoot every single day, trying to get different shots and just become better. And I didn't care if it was raining, as long as, it wasn't downpouring, but I didn't care if it was raining or if it was cold or if it was windy. I didn't care if it was, super, super bright days or a nice overcast. I didn't care the weather. I just went out and tried to shoot the best that I can. And eventually I was taking photos at this one coffee shop, and the owner found out about it, and he wanted to put one of the photos on a billboard. This little $600 camera got me photos on a billboard. And this camera has been everywhere. It's been up and down the entire East Coast. It's been in mud, rained on. It's been, camping with me. It's been in mountains. It's been in cities, countless amounts of coffee shops. I've always thought of certain things of what I can do with it to, try to, think outside the box and make the best of what I had. And I can honestly say that it was the best decision that I've ever made. And I'm never gonna part ways with it, because it's the camera that started it all. It's the camera that started everything for me along this entire journey of becoming a photographer, content creator, filmmaker, plus I'm kind of a pack rat, I'm not gonna lie. Then eventually, after so long, I decided to upgrade to a full frame, which is what I'm shooting on right now, which is the Canon EOS R. So now my question to you is, what started your journey? What started your journey as a photographer? What is the camera that started your journey as a photographer, filmmaker, content creator? I don't care what type of camera it is. It could be a Polaroid, it could be your phone, whatever. What is the camera that started it all for you? Also, what and where do you love to shoot? I would love to hear your stories. Have you ever gotten anywhere with your photography? Where has it taken you? Also, have you gotten in any ruts along the way? What did you do to overcome these ruts? I mean, I'm guilty of them. I've been there, been through that, done it. It's not a fun time, but you get through it. I want to know your story, because, you heard mine. I want to hear yours. But that is it today, folks. If you liked hanging out with me and listening to my story on how I, became a photographer, how I got into photography, filmmaking, content creation, remember to destroy the like button. It makes a huge difference. Hit up the comment section below. Hit up that comment section with your story. We can converse, we can talk, of course. And if you have not yet, definitely subscribe. Also, Just Explore. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.